All right, Miss Kate, I told you I would do a recipe that my grandmother used to make for me. It's called Yakimish. And what we have in Yakimish is rice, ground beef, onions, carrots, and soy sauce. So let me go ahead and get started with that. First thing we want to do, because it's going to take the longest to cook, is we want to put our rice on. And I am using Mahatma extra long grain enriched rice. I'm going to do a double batch of Yakimish today, and that's probably what you're going to want to do, because I think one batch of it will serve 4 to 6 people, and since you have such a large family, you'll probably want to do a double batch. I do a double batch because David likes to eat it so much that we usually we make a whole bunch of it and put it in the freezer for him. For one batch, you would use 1 cup of rice, but we're going to use 2 cups because remember, we're doubling everything. We're making a double batch. So let me get here we go. Get my little container out. Now the difficult thing about making rice, actually rice is really, really easy to make, but the most difficult part of it is that you want to make sure it doesn't boil over. So in order to make one batch of rice, and actually if you look on the back of your package, it's usually going to tell you, as a matter of fact, right here, I don't know if you can see it, but right here it tells me for rice, we're going to put 1 cup of rice, 2 cups of water, and that'll give us 3 cups of rice when it's all cooked, and that makes 4 servings. So like I said, I want to make about 8 servings. So we're going to do 2 cups of rice, 4 cups of water, and that's going to give us a total of 6 cups when we're all done. All right, let me get my knife out here. We'll open this up. And I have a little glass container here, the glass measuring cup. It has 2 cups all the way up to the top. So we want to put in 2 cups of rice since we're doubling this up. And we just pour that in up to the 2 cup mark. Make sure it's right. Very good. And then I'm going to pour that into my pot. And then we want to put 4 cups of water. So remember, it holds 2 cups. So we fill it up, put 2 cups in there, and pour it in our pot. And then 2 more cups for a total of 4. And I kind of let that rest a little bit so that all the bubbles come out, and I make sure I just have 2 cups. If you had just a little bit more in there, it wouldn't hurt anything. Now, because we're using a big pot, we're going to put this on a big burner. And normally you would put salt in there, but because of the dish that we're making, soy sauce is very, very salty. So we don't want to put any extra salt in it. But normally you would also put a little bit of salt in there. Now I will tell you that the trick to making perfect rice is that you put the lid on it, turn it on, and don't take that lid off until it's completely done. I like to use a glass lid on mine, so that way I can tell when it starts to boil. Like I said, that's the worst part of making the rice, is almost every time I have it boil over. I'm putting mine on high right now, but we're gonna, like I said, watch it. When it starts boiling, we'll turn it down, but we don't ever take the lid off there. Okay, the next thing that we're gonna do to make our Yakimish, I used to grate up my carrots. And we're going to use, for one batch, we use 2 pounds of carrots, but I don't like to grate them. So I started using these carrots that I get at the grocery store called matchstick carrots. And I really didn't like the way those tasted either. So I figured out just the other day that if I cook my carrots separate from everything and go ahead and steam them, and get them kind of done before I put them in with everything else, that works a lot better. So I have a big pot that I'm going to steam them on. And you see this pot that I've got right here on the stove already. This is called a wok. If you notice, it's kind of different. It's real round. As a matter of fact, if you had 2 of them, I think you'd have like a perfect ball there if you put 2 of them together. Okay, and we're gonna put that off to the side right now because we don't really have enough room on this stove, do we, to to do that, but we'll put this off to the side for right now. David is a New Orleans Saints fan. Can you tell that? I'm going to put this over here too. I have all sorts of ingredients out here. We're going to make a bunch of stuff today. Okay, in this pot, we're going to put our carrots. Now, in order to steam something, though, we really need to have something. Uh-oh, I turned the wrong burner on. Huh? Okay, in order to steam something, you've got to have a little bit of liquid. And normally you would do that with water, but because soy sauce is one of our main ingredients, we're going to do the soy sauce instead of the water. That way it'll keep it from watering it down. Now remember, I told you in a normal batch of this, we use 2 pounds of carrots. So we're doing a double batch, so 2 times 2 is 4. You didn't know you had to do math in the middle of cooking, did you? Now, I'm cheating just a little bit because normally these carrots, I would have a 2-pound bag of carrots, but this says it's 10 ounces, and normally 16 ounces is a pound. But because we're doing a double batch, I'm going to use a little bit less, and also because these don't come but in 10-ounce packages. So it's okay to have a little bit less than this. Some people like a lot of carrots. Some people don't like as many. I kind of don't like as many. David likes a lot. So this one we're just going to compromise a little bit. All right, and so we're going to put all of these in. Now when it cooks down, it's not going to be as full in the pot. Okay, let's see. So we put 2 10-ounce packages in there. And now we're going to put another one in. Kind of mush that down. And one more. And by the way, you see this meat sitting out here. Normally I would bring that out of the refrigerator at the very, very end because we don't want meat sitting out raw. But we're going really quickly here so it's not sitting out on the counter very long. All right, so I've got all those carrots in there. Boy, it's going to take a while for that to cook. And since it is, I'm going to put it on this big burner, okay? And that's going to cook it a little bit faster. I'm also going to turn this one on, I think I'm going to turn this one on medium. All right, and then we're going to add some soy sauce. We like soy sauce, obviously. We've used a lot out of that container. Let's get this opened up. And I kind of like to shake it up because soy sauce will get kind of stuck to the bottom of the container. And I'm just going to pour this in, and this is the liquid that we're going to use to steam. Now you're going, how much did she put in there? Well, I really don't know. We just pour it into taste, and at first you're probably going to think, oh, that's too much. Really, it's not going to be. I mean, I wouldn't put a cup in there. That was probably a 1/4 cup maybe, and we'll put just a little bit more in there. When we open this, you're going to see this has got a different kind of top on it. It's really kind of strange. You see that? Okay, let's put this in. You can see us over here looking at ourselves. We want to make sure that you can see everything that's going on. Okay, so I just put a little bit more in there. All right, and then we're going to put the lid on, and ever so often we need to check that because we don't want that to burn. We'll stir it from the bottom of the pot. Okay, looks like our rice is just about to start to boil. Can you see that? Just about to start, but I'm not going to lift that lid on it. I am going to watch it very closely to make sure that it's not boiling over. Now, let's see what we can do with our wok. Okay, one thing that you need to know about when you're cooking is the size of your pot and the size of your burner. You see this pot's got really big around, and that burner is about the same size around as that pot is. But on a wok, look at the bottom of this. You see this spot right here? It's very small, which is about the same size as this burner here. We can put this wok on this burner and it'll work just fine on this burner. It may look like it needs to go on a big burner, but it doesn't. What happens with a wok, the way it cooks, is it heats. Oh, look, our rice is boiling. So we're going to turn it down, all the way down on low. and then I'm going to set the timer for 20 minutes. Now I'm watching it. If it looks like it's going to boil over, I just pick it up off of the burner for just a little bit to get it to calm down a little bit. And then I put it back on, and we just kind of watch it a little bit. All right, we're going to set our timer to 20 minutes. And hit start. It takes exactly 20 minutes to cook the rice perfect. Okay. There we go. See, I'd hate it when it boils over because it makes it all icky and it smells kind of funny. It wants to go all down the side of the pot, and that's not fun. Pretty bubbles in there though. Okay. Now, what I was telling you about the wok. This is not cooperating. Here, we'll turn it off. We'll just set it off for just a minute till it cools off just a little bit. On a wok, the way that it cooks, actually all pots will heat up the side, but you can't really cook on the side of a pot. But because of the way a wok is set up, you can cook at the bottom and then move the food as it cooks up to the sides, and it'll stay warm because the sides of the pot are warm. So it's a really, really cool tool to use. You don't have to cook yakimish on a wok. Most of the time I would cook it in a pot like that, but I just kind of like doing it, and it's kind of fun. I thought you might like to see how that worked. Now, we're going to turn our wok on. Let's put it on medium high, and then I have some olive oil spray. You can use any kind of like butter, oil, margarine, Pam, anything like that. But I kind of like this extra virgin olive oil spray. It's really neat. I wasn't sure I would like that in Chinese food. This is kind of like a Chinese-y type dish. But I don't mind the way it tastes. It really doesn't add that much of a flavor. So I sprayed that all over the inside of the pan so that it will keep our food from sticking to it. Now, what kind of onions do we use? Well, we use a whole onion, and I like to use either a white onion, a yellow onion, or sometimes you can use a red onion, just whatever you like. And then I've also learned, that's what this is right here. This is a whole onion, and I actually got it already chopped up because I didn't want to take the time on our video to have to chop it up. But I'm going to open that up. It comes that way at Publix. It's really kind of neat that they do that. Most of the grocery stores, I think, do that. It's a little more expensive, but you know what keeps me from crying too? Oh, and there's that little thing in the bottom of it. You want to make sure that that's not stuck in there. I did that one time. I cooked a roast and it had that in there, and it was cooked all in the roast. It was gross. Okay, we'll throw that out. And this is a whole onion. All right, let's see. Did we turn it? Yeah, we turned it on. Then the other day I was cooking this and I had some green onions. You know, those are the ones that they have a tiny little white bulb at the bottom and a long green stem. And I put those green onions in it, and I thought, you know, I like the way that tasted. So remember, we're making a double batch, so we would use one whole onion, and I'm going to use another whole onion, but this one I'm going to use green onion instead. All right, so I'm just going to put that in there. Get that little packet out. Ugh, it's kind of slimy. Onions are kind of slimy. And it looks like I have a little root or something in there. There we go. Okay. Somebody cut the whole thing up and left every little bit of it in there. And we're watching our rice too to make sure it doesn't boil over. All right, now throw all that trash away. It's getting really cloudy outside. Looks like it's about to rain. The water off the back porch is kind of looking mean and ugly. All right, so we start cooking this, and I'm actually going to turn it up to high because I'm standing here working with it, and we're just going to saute these onions. Saute just simply means that you're going to stir them around in some kind of oil. In our case, remember, it's that extra virgin olive oil spray. And we're just going to keep stirring it around until it gets completely cooked. Now, when you start out with onions, with a raw onion, it's white or red or yellow, whichever one you're using. And as you cook it, it becomes what we call translucent. That means you can kind of see through it, okay? So we're just going to keep stirring this around And I don't know if you noticed, but I'm using a kind of spoon that's a rubber spoon. See, it's a rubber spoon, and the reason I do that is because when I move it on this pan, this is a non-stick pan. It has a special coating on it, and it will not scratch that pan. If I used a metal spoon on it, it would scratch my pan all up, and then I wouldn't get as good a or long use out of it. So I don't know if you can hear this, but it's sizzling. And onions, when they cook, oh my goodness, they smell so good. Especially when you cook them with butter on them. I didn't put butter on these though. And we're just stirring them around so that they get hot. One of the kind of neat things too about a wok is that you can spread these all out along the sides and they'll cook. All of them will cook. If you've got a pot with a smaller bottom that you can only cook in the bottom, you have to keep stirring them so that they all get in there and get cooked equally. So you can kind of do this. The only thing you want to make sure is that it doesn't burn. It can brown, but you don't want them to burn. All right. Let me tell you something about rice too. Some recipes, or some people will tell you when you cook rice, and some people will tell you this about pasta too, that you should rinse it after you cook it. Some people say rinse it before you cook it. I don't do that because I believe that it rinses all the good nutrients and vitamins and everything out of it. There's a lot of different kinds of rice. The one I'm using is called extra long grain enriched rice. I'm going to pour one of those out in my hand and let you see what it looks like. They also, when you go to Oriental restaurants, you quite often will see jasmine rice, and that is a very specific kind of rice as well. Now jasmine rice, I will tell you that a lot of people say it does need to be rinsed, and I agree with that for the most part, although I've eaten it or I've cooked it where I didn't rinse it, and I kind of like the flavor of it, but to some people it's really strong. So with jasmine rice, that's one of those things that you kind of have to figure out on your own. And then there's brown rice, which is really good for you. It's got a lot of vitamins. Brown rice takes a long time to cook, really long time. So I don't cook it as often as I should because it's so good for you. But okay, all right, I wanted to show you this rice. They call it extra long grain. I'm not sure what that means. I would think that it would be, let's see if you can see that. Can you see that rice there? I'm not quite sure what it would be if it wasn't extra long. It might be really miniature pieces of rice. I don't know. Okay, I don't know if you can see, but our onions are starting to turn translucent. See, it doesn't take very long at all for that to happen. There's still quite a few of them that are white, but some of them are getting where you can see through them. I like to cook them so they're translucent and then go just a little bit longer and make them where they're kind of browning. I really like onions to be cooked. A lot of places I go now, you can't get your onions cooked. And to me, that just releases so much flavor when you cook them. Otherwise, I don't really care for onions. I don't like raw onions. Well, for one exception, I love raw onions on a hamburger. That's about the only time I like raw onions. This recipe was something that my grandmother, Mama B, I don't know if you've ever heard of her, but she made this recipe, and I don't know where she got it, but I have made it a ton. She made it when I was a little girl, and I learned the recipe from her. Now we've got some of our food is still stuck to this spoon. A lot of people will tap it on the side of their pan. I try to be careful doing that. I'll do it sometimes, but you don't want to mess up your pan. So I usually use another utensil to get it off. You make sure you get it off so that it does cook. Wouldn't you know it, as soon as I start doing this, my nose starts running. So I've got the sniffles. I hope that doesn't come across on our video too much. Allergies. Okay. Now as this cooks more, you need to really kind of stir it a lot. And you'll notice that the oil that we sprayed on the pan, it kind of starts going away. It's because it's inside of those, inside of the vegetables now, the onions that we put in there. These are starting to look really, really good. Okay, now I'm going to go ahead at this point where you can pretty much see through all of these. Like I said, I like them to get really brown, but I'm going to go ahead and put our meat in there, our ground beef. And I use something that's really lean. Lean means that it doesn't have a lot of fat in it. As a matter of fact, if you can look at your meat and you see that it's red and it has little flecks of white, that white stuff is the fat. Now I defrosted this yesterday before we did this, and I got a little corner of it that was a little done. But I'm going to go ahead and put that in there. It's completely thawed up now. And we just add that in. And when you use a lean ground beef or ground round, since it doesn't have a lot of fat in it, that's good. If it had a lot of fat, we would have to drain it or strain it in a strainer. I want to show you what that looks like. Because if you ever cook ground beef, you'll have to put it in what we call a colander or a strainer. There's the grater. David likes to grate the carrots, but he wasn't available. But this is, you could do it in a strainer or a colander. We do that with spaghetti noodles. This is another kind. You'll heard it called a strainer or colander. Oh, go back in there. It doesn't want to cooperate. There we go. Okay. All right, back to this. Now, I just keep chopping and chopping and chopping, and you can see that ground beef is going to get really done here. It's going to turn really, really brown. And I cooked some yesterday too, because remember I said I was going to do a double batch. You want to do a pound of ground beef. So far, for one batch, we do 1 cup of rice and 2 cups of water. We do 2 pounds of carrots. We do 1 onion. And we do 1 pound of ground beef. All right, let's check our, oh, look at those carrots. Remember I told you they would kind of cook down? They have been cooking down. Look at that, look at that. That's really neat. And you see that liquid is still in there, and it's making those carrots get really, really tender and soft. I don't like them to be mushy, but I do like them to be soft. So that's working out really good. For some reason, these, if I don't cook them separate, if I cook them all together, they don't get soft. So, like I said, I learned this just the other day, that if I cook them separately, those matchstick carrots, then they cook really well and they have a really good flavor when I add them to our mixture. Okay, now back to this. For one batch, it's 1 cup of rice to 2 cups of water. It's 2 pounds of carrots, 1 onion, and 1 pound of ground beef. So if we're doubling it, we use 2 cups of rice to 4 cups of water. We use 4 pounds of carrots. We use 2 onions and 2 pounds of ground beef. Now, you saw me put 1 pound of ground beef in here. I actually cooked some yesterday. I was defrosting it, and for some reason my defroster, my microwave doesn't work real well, but my defroster cooked it. So I thought, well, I'll just go ahead and cook that and add it to the pot tomorrow. So I do have some ground beef that I've already cooked right here, and we're going to add that in just a minute after we get this all browned up. I also want to tell you that aside from the rice, of course the rice has to cook in its own pot. But I told you that you can cook all of this in one pot. If you've got a really, really big pot, you can cook it all in one pot instead of having to cook it separately like this. If you use grated carrots, if you grate your own carrots, because when you grate them, they're much finer carrots, they're much thinner, and those you don't have to pre-cook like we're pre-cooking these carrots. So what I do is I get everything cooked to this point where it's all brown, and then I would add the carrots in here. And you have to have a pot that has a lid, and my wok doesn't have a lid. So what I do is I get all that stuff browned, and then I put the raw carrots in, and I cover it with a pot, or cover it with a lid. And then once I've got it all covered and ready to go, I just keep cooking it and stirring it and cooking it and stirring it until those carrots are done. And it's all mixed together, and it looks really good and tastes really good. And then I add the rice to it. Some folks serve the rice on a plate and then put the Yakimish on top of it, but I like to mix mine all together. So it's just kind of according to how you like to do it. Some people like a lot more rice with theirs, and some people like kind of an even amount of rice. I like the even amount of rice, so that's why I mix mine all together. But you just have to kind of find out from your family what they like. And we just keep cooking this until it gets really brown. And you'll notice that there is a little bit of liquid in the bottom. That's the oil off of the meat. But that's going to totally cook away. We're not going to have any of that left. I don't know if you can tell, but there's a lot of steam going on here. And I would normally turn my fan on. I have a fan on the stove. But because we're videotaping this, I didn't want all that extra noise. Alright, this is looking really good. I wish you could smell it. Maybe you'll make it and it'll smell really good. And you'll go, oh wow. Of course, when it smells really good is when you add the soy sauce to it. Okay, and when I serve this, I put the soy sauce on the table, and if people want to add soy sauce to it, they can. I think I wound up putting about, okay, our battery disconnected or ran out right in the middle, but we're back. We're making sure that this is all browned up and all the liquid in the bottom is no longer there. Let's check our carrots. While the battery was off, the buzzer rang for the 20 minutes. So all of the rice is done. And these carrots look really, really good. I don't know if you can see one on this side. Let's pull one of these out. And we'll see how it does. Just put it right here. And if I just take a fork and cut into it, it just cuts really easy. So those carrots are done. I'm going to turn those off and let those sit here for just a little bit. We don't want to lose all of our good vitamins, so I'm going to cover that back up. Okay, we're going to add the meat that we cooked yesterday, the ground beef, and let that heat up a little bit. And then we will add the carrots. David has already been up here complaining that he wants to eat. He loves Yakimish. So you see how big this is in this pot. It's really filling it up. So we have to have a big, 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 big pot. But you know about that. I watched your mom cook soup one day for the whole family, and I thought the pot was going to just totally overflow. I didn't see how she could put her spoon in and stir it up. There was so much soup, and it was so good. I got the recipe from your mom. It's on my iPad. You know what? It actually was on my iPad, but my iPad crashed not long ago, and it's not there anymore. So I need to get that recipe from your mom. I can't remember what it was. What kind of soup? Some kind of potato. It got really rainy outside while I was changing the battery in the GoPro. Wow, this is going to be so, so good. Okay, I think everything is kind of heated up there. So let's add our 4 pounds of carrots. Okay, that lid is hot because it's metal. Now, this also had soy sauce in it, and we're going to make sure that soy sauce goes in too. I'm going to pour these in just a little bit at a time so that we can stir it up and mix it up really, really good. And we need to turn this down too. We're going to turn it down to kind of medium. By the way, it depends on your stove as to what temperature to cook everything. You can cook it pretty close to the same temperatures that I was doing. But we're working with a little bit older stove, so yours may cook a little hotter than mine does. I don't know if you notice I'm kind of raising this up so that when I stir it, it won't come up the sides. Yeah, that looks good. Okay, we've got that in there. Let's put some more of those carrots in. Just dump them in. And mix those up. Yeah. Mix and mix and mix. Lots of carrots. David loves carrots. I think that's probably why this is one of his favorites. Okay, now we'll put the rest of our carrots in there. Get them all in. Whew, the steam. I couldn't see there for a minute. This may be something that you may need just a little bit of help from your mom or from one of your sisters or your brother. By the way, cooking is not just for girls. There are a lot of chefs out there who are really famous who are men. Yummy. This looks good. Now I can tell you, I guess just because I've kind of been cooking this for so long, oop, I'm doing it over the sides. Okay. That just from looking at it, it looks a little bit dry to me. So I think I will add some soy sauce. And remember, I told you that we don't put salt in this. So all of our seasoning, all of our salt is coming from, I need to pay attention to what I'm doing. It's coming from our soy sauce. So you just kind of put some in and taste it and see what you think. And if it's not enough, you put a little bit more. I would go maybe a little on the a little less side than on a little more side, because you can't take it out once you put it in, but you can add more. And I just pour it over the top and pour it all the way around. It takes a good bit, but just do it to your taste, because what you think tastes good and what I think tastes good could be a little bit different. We're mixing it all together, and our Yakimish is just about done. I'm going to turn this all the way down to warm. I made a mess. Got some of that on the side. And now we need to taste it. By the way, always put a clean tasting fork or spoon in, and don't ever taste it again after you've put it in one time and put it in your mouth. Okay, it's going to be kind of hot, a little bit steamy. Perfect. Perfect, perfect, perfect. That is absolutely perfect. Okay, so that's it. Like I said, I normally add the rice. My pot's a little bit big, a little bit small to add the rice for this double batch. Let's go ahead. Let's try it out. Okay, and when after this cooked for 20 minutes, I took it off of the burner and put it on a cool burner. You want to make sure that it's always cool, but I left the lid on it until I was ready so that it would be nice and hot. And oh, it's just so tender. The rice is just so tender. And I add the rice. Like I said, you don't have to add the rice to it. You can just put rice on a plate and then serve the Yakimish on top of it. I'm going to mix it in. Yum, yum, yum. And it's such a pretty, colorful dish. All right, that's all there is to it. I just keep mixing until it's totally mixed up. But that's it. I hope you enjoy it. I hope you'll eat some. All right, love you, bye. All right, there's a look at what our final Yakimish looks like, all mixed up. David's already been upstairs to get some.